Hello, I'm Yui.
And I'm Joey.
Welcome to the workshop sharing of our musical lanterns. So we thought we'd give you a quick overview of the background of the show, about why it's relevant now and why we wanted to write it, and also about the show itself and what we were planning to do with it. So as some of you may know, I have been pursuing a Master's in Musical Direction at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland. So given the global pandemic, I have been completing my term 4 remotely at home, and so the Conservatoire very kindly agreed to let me complete a equivalency project in replacement of the season of new works at the Fringe. So instead, I have decided to write a new work of my own. So I pitched the idea of the show to Joey, and here we are.
3 or 4 months ago, Yui approached me, and rather than pitching a full concept, she actually pitched me a scene. And then everything you're about to see from now on is derived from that one scene, this one idea.
So in terms of the setting of the show, as you may have seen from the blurb, we are set in 1934 Shanghai during the New Life movement, which is led by Chiang Kai-shek and his wife, Su Meiling, who are the leaders of the Kuomintang party at the time. So it surprisingly was a political movement which was very inherently social in nature, in that the generals were aiming to impact and change the way that the average person lived on a very fundamental level. And this was really interesting to us because it is a period of time that when we study Chinese history, we don't normally talk about.
Or if we do talk about it, it's very much overlooked and skipped over. For example, when I studied this period, we covered it perhaps in about 20 minutes, and it was basically summarized in, it failed.
So it was really important to us, I think, to explore a really universal message in that, how political unrest and political changes and enforced movements impact the daily lives of ordinary people, which is quite relevant right now, actually. And however, we really wanted to apply it to a really specific group of people that we felt like impacted us. So in terms of writing, as we said, we worked quite exploratively. Basically, we worked quite erratically, is what we did.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's definitely also due to the time zone differences. I'm currently in Hong Kong, which is why the light is rapidly disappearing, and you may get random clips where the light's brighter as we edit this. However, for me, a lot of the time I would spend my morning into the early afternoon writing whenever I felt inspired. And as Yui woke up, she would then see what I wrote. And then her morning / early afternoon, we'd work together to sort of fix what I wrote and then maybe continue. And then I went to bed as she continued to write or start with the music.
So musically, I've been inspired by both my sort of Western classical training in the past, and also by some Chinese traditions. So the Chinese side of the music has been influenced by the Hall Opera, which is the local opera of Shanghai, and also by a genre called Shidaichu, which is sort of a fusion of American jazz and Chinese folk, which originated from the Shanghai Bund in the 1920s and became popular in the 30s and 40s, especially in Shanghai and also later in Taiwan. We have worked in sort of vignette form, so we have 3 collections of scenes for you. So what you're about to see are chronologically following the main events of Act 1, but are sort of collections of scenes which have been written throughout this process. The first thing that you're about to see is a standalone song, which is the first song of the act, and then we have a collection of scenes from The Merchant and his official wife, which explores more of the political tensions which are occurring at the time, but also how their relationship may have looked and how a typical wife and husband relationship may have even worked at the time. And the last collection of scenes is what Joey mentioned, of that one scene that I pitched to him, which is the core of the show, which is the relationship between the 2 young concubines. For us, that is the basis. That love story is the basis of the show. We think there's never a wrong time to tell a story. There are times that are more right than others, but right now, in a global pandemic, it has never been more important to us, I think, to write a story which has very particular styles and talks about a very specific group of people to represent a universal message. We don't think that we are doing anything groundbreaking. We also don't think that you're about to come out of this with a changed set of morals. It is not as deep as that. We're writing a musical and it's about entertainment. However, as East Asians ourselves, and at the sort of start of our careers, we have noticed that the representation of East Asian creatives, whether that be actors, directors, MDs, practitioners, production teams, are lacking in stories which concern them. And that in turn concerns us, because as practitioners and as creatives, we would like to be able to find our places in the industry.
And I also personally feel that now is the perfect time to quote unquote attack the theatre industry with these sorts of stories, as currently due to the coronavirus pandemic, everything is paused. However, hopefully as things slowly open up, we will be at the forefront with our fellow East Asian creatives to sort of bring forth this new type of theatre. And now we'll have the actors introduce themselves, and they will also tell you a little bit about the characters they've helped develop.
Hi, my name is Ava Law, and I will be playing the role of the merchant Li Xiansheng, or Mr. Li. Mr. Li is an extremely ambitious man, having climbed his way up from the bottom, trading everything he can get his hands on, including his marriage. Mr. Li is willing to do everything in order to elevate his social status. When economical wealth became redundant, he sought political power. He cares for his family and his relationships, but they could never compare to the weight of rising in the ranks. Whether he does this for his family or himself, I don't think he even knows.
My name is Ying Ue Li, and I will be playing Shen Yi Ren, the first and official wife of the merchant. When she married the merchant, she was of a higher social status than him and has enjoyed a comfortable life. The arrival of the concubines in her life has disrupted her previous courteous but lackluster relationship with the merchant.
My name is Yuki Sutton, and I workshop the role of Fei Chi. Fei Chi is from a wealthy family. She's very well educated and recently had the opportunity to study abroad in England. Due to a family emergency, however, she suddenly has to return home to Shanghai, which is where the merchant takes her in. Fei Chi is quite shy, she's quite reserved, but she's very true to herself and to her values.
Hello, I'm Joy, and I played Bai Lian, the merchant's first concubine. Bai Lian joined the merchant's family because she is from an uneducated, lower-class background. As a concubine, her life is missing the glamour that one would associate with being the wife of a wealthy merchant, as she is essentially treated like a maid. Nevertheless, like Shen Yi Ren, the first wife, Bai Lian's under the impression that one of her main roles is to provide the merchant with a son.
I'm Jasmine Bayes, and I'm going to be playing the role of李老夫人, who is the merchant's elderly mother. She is uneducated and somewhat uncouth, but she believes herself as high society and sees herself as the lady of the house. She most of all believes in continuing bloodlines. So when Yi Ren failed to produce a child for her son, she grew anxious and she encouraged her son's pursuit of the concubines.
Another sunrise, another morning, all to myself
myself. I hear the silence in the house and thank the heavens for only in these early hours can I be myself. Maybe I'll play a record, sing my heart out, maybe dance too. I'll turn the stove on, heat the oven, cook whatever. But when I hear the morning rustles, I must brew the tea to serve the family when they come. I'll set the timer for the tea and leave it brewing. Thus leave some time to go outside and watch the sunrise. For when I hear Shanghai wake up, I wish I was out there. This time I'll do the same thing every day like all the others. The work that I've been given always the same. Sometimes I wonder what it's all for when I escape from one home to another just to serve.
Mama said it should be my life goal to be happy. Baba, he always agreed. Though I do everything I can to follow her lead, how come I have to fake my glee? Every day I wonder and hear, every day the tea's left to brew, and I think, why did I agree to this? Let's just hope that nothing has to change. His mother only cares about the family fortune. That girl does not have a clue. Her role's to bear a son, to call him father, something that I have failed to do. Where, oh where does he disappear, leaving me alone in this big house with those two as his wife? I obey him, all my life contained between these walls. Where does he disappear?
But when I hear that morning whistle,
all my life contained between these walls.
Confucius says the strength of country comes from the home. The nation's soul is safely stored within these walls. I do what I can, honor these four words. The family's fortune rests on us following Li and Shu. The seasons come and go, traditions last forever. Our culture, rights and rituals are all that keeps me going. Young women of their age must learn about our ways. For at their age my family had nothing to call our own. I waited all my life. Then finally the clouds reveal the shining sun. But the storm's not cleared and the sunlight burns. So I tremble for the morning when my life bursts at the seams.
and now I hear the morning whistle.
All my life contained between these walls.
I must pour the tea out for the family.
Young women of their age must learn about our ways. These culture, rights and rituals are all that keeps me going.
The sun is rising
I waited
now Shanghai's
all
waking
night
up.
long.
Every day is all the
Sunrise,
same.
But the storm's not clear to
serve it.
and the fire
Though the
rolls.
sunlight
So
burns,
I tremble for the morning
I'd still
that
be
my
left
life
to
Welcome home, Xiansheng. Did you have a pleasant day?
Good evening, Furen. Yes, I did. I do have news for you.
I trust you managed to avoid most of the downpour.
I was sent home in Commander Yang's Ford for my compliance. What an experience that was. I wish I had been you in the automobile with me. The comfort of the private leathered seats and the darkened windows were sensational.
What a lovely opportunity for you. A pleasant day indeed. So, did you make plans for another visit?
We took a slight detour through the international concessions to pick up the commander's family governess. While there, I saw a beautiful family with several small children. The father looked European, probably British, but the mother was Chinese. Their rosy-cheeked children waved at us as we drove past steadily.
How many children?
3 children, all with delightful eyes and eager smiles. The eldest was probably around 8. The youngest barely out of the cradle and was being precariously held by a young woman as we drove past them.
How wonderful. Now, the commander, have plans for another visit been made?
Yes, indeed. I haven't forgotten about what you said. Now, I must talk to you about something, Fu Ren. How have you been finding Bai Lian's presence in our home?
Fine. Good. How have you found the tea in the last few weeks?
Oh, I had wondered if you had changed the kettle. The moly is a little overbrewed some mornings.
I'll make sure to let her know to take it off earlier then. She settled in well. It is good to have more help around the house since the maid left. Though sometimes I do miss how everything used to be so clean. Bai Lian has, let us say, a somewhat primitive approach to cleaning.
Of course, but she will soon learn. Bad habits do die hard, especially for young girls from poorer families. But other than that, her presence has been
A welcome change.
good. Just as I expected. The general commanded me at dinner tonight
You did? For what?
for our ability to house someone like Bai Lian and welcome her into our home as part of our family. Not many men are willing, or should I say, can host concubines. It takes a certain amount of social stature and wealth to maintain a stable lifestyle, as I am sure you are well aware.
Yes. I'm eternally grateful for the life we share.
I am sure. Anyway, the commander is surprised we have managed to keep Bai Lian for this long. He has known many men who have attempted to keep a concubine, but because of the progressive mindset, many have given up.
What martyrs we are.
Well, both he and I agreed that a lot of the credit lies solely on you.
We both did.
Always a tone of surprise with you. Well, yes, while the sole responsibility of the household lies solely with the husband, your open-mindedness as my wife, your ability to embrace a new life and welcome a stranger into our family has made us stand out in the commander's eyes.
I do admit I may have had some reservations at first.
As you rightfully deserve to have done. But you soon realized the benefits of having Bai Lian around, didn't you? Not only has she been a great help around the house, but she has now proved herself to be of use to us in regards to the commander and the regime. And that got me thinking.
What were you thinking?
We've always sought to have a son, whether by Bai Lian or preferably by yourself. But would our chances not increase if we welcomed another into our home?
Another woman. Another concubine.
Precisely.
I was under the impression that prior to welcoming Bai Lian into our homes, we had agreed that she would be the only one.
Yes, I remember. However, I'm sure we are both surprised at the sheer number of benefits having a concubine has. We started this journey together, expecting to have a beautiful son by the end of it. But now, we also have the chance to move up further in society under the new regime. So by the time we have our son, he'll be set for life.
Our son.
We've already waited this long. Think of the riches we could afford him in a year's time when I have risen to the commander's confidant. or even his rank, to keep our business, but also be involved with the society and to move to the international concessions. Isn't that what you want? The woman whom I am considering is due to inherit a property on the finest street in the international concessions, Fu Ren.
I see. And would keeping her increase your chances to rise the ranks further? Then I'm willing to oblige.
I knew I could count on you. Well, I must sleep.
Already? You only just came home. I was hoping that we could prepare for the Hungry Ghost Festival together tonight.
I know, but the boat which brings Fei Chi, that's her name, back to Shanghai will arrive tomorrow morning at 5.
Tomorrow?
Yes, that is the plan. I promised you a better life, Fu Ren. Trust me.
I bid you good night.
Are you familiar with those old idioms that your nai-nais and ayis used to teach us during our youth? 小洞不补，大洞吃苦. Which means if small holes aren't fixed, then big holes will bring hardship. Or 水满则溢, water flows in only to flow out. I never really understood why I would have to use such convoluted, flowery language when I found it much simpler to be direct and concise. It felt like my brain was filtering out this outdated nonsense like a sieve every time I tried to remember them. But as the only person in my family lucky enough to have received any semblance of education, Nai insisted I continued. Every day after my calligraphy lessons, I would have to write them out, line after line, again and again, to drill them into my consciousness. Even now, when they are engraved in my mind, across my years of youth, I sought to never use them in life. But one day, while writing out my daily idioms, my sieve caught a nugget of gold. One idiom stood out to me. I remembered it immediately and didn't even need to repeat pages upon pages of strained characters. Back then, I never really understood why this specific idiom was the one exception out of hundreds. But I immediately understood its importance in life, how it could help me, help my family rise. Would you like to know what it was? 有钱一条龙，无钱一条虫. A wealthy person is like a dragon, whereas a poor person is like a worm. In my young mind, I conjured up an image of a large dragon curled up around a mountain of glistening gold, protected by its status, physical strength, and pious worshippers. The worms, common invertebrates, squirmed blindly around in the dirt, waiting to die, poor and irrelevant. I knew I was a worm. I was a part of a family of worthless worms in a village of uneducated worms where there was never a single dragon in sight. I knew that simply wouldn't do, that I wouldn't give up before I even started. Do you know what year I was born in? 1892, the year of the dragon. It could not have been any more plain. It was written in the stars long before my birth. It was my duty to transform into the dragon I was destined to become. The idiom that I was forced to learn next confirmed the fact that this was my destiny. Don't stand by the water. Go home and weave net. My first trade was when I was 10 years old. I spent a lot of time on the beach picking up seashells. My friends and I would pick up as many pretty ones as we could find and compare, eventually turning it into a competition, a small little rivalry of who could pick up the most shells. Well, one morning, he lost his jar of shells. He was in hysterics. He was winning our little competition after all. He'd gone from being a dragon to a worm in the blink of an eye. Just that morning, Grandma had taught me a new idiom. In every crisis, there is an opportunity. Well, I jumped on this crisis. I saw an opportunity. I offered him half my shells. That way we could be neck and neck in the competition once more. In exchange for this beautiful Jiang porcelain teacup his parents owned. I dare say it did take some convincing. Porcelain was hard to come by, especially in our village of worms. But he soon relented. You know, 我不是半途而废的人. I'm not a person who gives up halfway. I relished in the excitement of conducting a successful trade. I continued to trade seashells with my friends in exchange for rare goods, which I eventually sold for money as I became older. And this is how I became the man I am today. With the money came something even more valuable. Social status. You see, while the money was lovely to own, it was the public image that truly mattered. I became revered, important, reliable. Without my reputation, I would never have been able to fully transform into the dragon and move into Shanghai, the city of dragons. To this day, I silently thank my friend for leaving his jar of shells unattended.
It's been said mid-July is the festival of ghosts, returning hungry. It is our role as their living family to appease them. Strike a match, emit a spark, light a candle in the dark, taking the feast I have prepared for them. And as I walk to the river, sensing the spirits closing in, all the years I have prayed to this night sky, they're like the crimson lanterns floating down the river, set for miles as the flame slowly fades away. While the spirits whisper words of wisdom to illuminate my path, I am lost for another day. I appear all alone to my family up there. How I shame them. Every year he resists, saying they're not his to mourn. Maybe next time. No one left to praise their souls. I leave offerings and go, placing the incense in the ground below. And as I follow the bank, watching the lanterns drifting past, all the doubts brim in my heart. They're like the crimson lanterns floating down the river, set for miles
I like that song. It reminds me of home.
I can't quite place your accent. Are you from Shanghai as well?
I was born by the sea in a small fishing village. When I was 3, Papa moved us to a small town nearby. He said he was sick of the tide drowning our crops. Even that small, I remember the mean back talk from the others about him just being a salesman. Anyway, both homes were nothing like Shanghai. Before coming here, I'd never seen buildings with more than one story. So, your turn now, Fei Chi.
My turn to do what?
Tell me your story. I know your name, and I know you're from down the bay now. What else? Your name is pretty.
Excuse me?
Even I know it's from Zhongfei Zhongwu. Your parents must have had great expectations for you to name you something like that.
I'm coming from the White Lotus.
It's only because my father saw the lotus pond on the way home when I was born.
Your name. It wasn't pre-planned. My father had scourged the dictionaries and poems.
Yes, but clearly you're from a high-ranking family, and your father was obviously a lot more educated than mine. I'm sorry. I just meant that your name has more meaning than mine. Is it true you've been outside China? In Britain?
Is this your tactic?
My tactic?
To intimidate me.
Why would I do that?
Aren't we in competition to have Xiansheng's child? I've heard the horror stories of pregnant concubines being pushed down flights of stairs or forced to miscarriage by their rivals, all in a bid to have a son first. Funny.
You've been reading too many tabloids. You definitely were educated abroad if you think that's all we concubines do.
Congratulations. That's my life story you've just deciphered.
It must be so strange to have your life chances disappear like that. I didn't mean to be so blunt. Just never lived a life like yours. If I had, I'd definitely be crying right now.
Why should I cry?
You had your whole life ahead of you. A career, money, status, education, things I never even imagined were possible for women. For me, anyway. And now you're here, a concubine, dusting the gramophone, arranging the vinyls, chatting away to me.
What's so wrong with chatting with you?
It's nice that you're here. Having someone in the house who's close to my age. You're in your early 20s, right? I knew it! I can see it in your eyes. You hide it well, though. So what's it like to be surrounded by water? It's been such a long time since I've been down by the Bund and seen the sea from the shores.
Have you never been on a boat?
Why would I need to be on a boat? Papa didn't fish, and only rich young ladies went on study trips abroad to fill their heads with. So it would have been a long boat ride, I suppose.
A long boat ride. If you count 3 months as a long time, then I suppose. But yes. My brother bought me an English calendar as a parting gift. I marked every passing night on my outward trip to Britain, then counted the crosses on my way back. 98. I made 98 crosses.
It's been so long since someone's asked me, since someone's wanted to know, since someone's listened, since someone's bothered, since someone's made the effort to care. I guess I'm not used to being the other, and having nowhere to turn, lost in my head, lost in this new life, lost in this world alone. Blue glowing waters stretch before your eyes, bright silver ripples fall before its light. Sometimes the dolphins sing and the gulls croon dawn, and the whole time I look out my window, sunsets and sunrises bring a newfound day. Darkness creeps in and steals my hope away. The tide ebbs and flows, and my life begins to close its doors. 98 nights offshore.
Looking back at it, it seems like a long time, but time flew by so quickly. Excitement kept us all up at night, and we daydreamed about what life would be like. Nervous laughter filled the air at dinner the night before we were due to arrive.
Beige limestone towers rise up one by one. Crystal windows glisten in the sun. And when the clock bells chime and the sparrow sings, every day I count my blessings. Sunsets and sunrises bring a newfound day. Darkness creeps in and steals my hope away. The tide ebbs and flows, and my life begins to weave its fortunes. 98 nights ashore.
Then, having only been there for 3 months, I received a telegram from my brother informing me of family emergency in Shanghai, that I was to return by boat immediately.
Jet black waters darkening as I sleep, murky dull ripples pounding as I weep. Sometimes the sharks swim near and the crews trail down, and I count one more cross as I pray. Sunsets and sunrises bring a newfound day. Darkness storms in and steals my hope away. My heart overflows like the waves across the ocean floor. 98 nights once more. My 98th cross, marked after sunrise, sealed my fate forevermore. And as we talk, I look out my window and I see no one that I know. And he's there.
It is an honor to join your family, Lao Furen.
Ying Ue Ren has headed to the temple ahead of the festivities this morning. I trust you are well rested after yesterday's ordeal. Now, let us get formally acquainted. Bai Lian, bring us some tea and use the Jing porcelain tea set. Make sure you don't drop it now. It is our family's prized possession. Now, let us get a good look at you. Let me see your hands, my dear. Ah, what beautiful hands, so smooth and pale. Unlike Bai Lian, with her rough calluses and dirty fingernails. You've clearly been well provided for. What did your father do, my dear?
He was professor at the Aurora University. So was my mother.
An educated woman, or a university at that. You must have practically lived in the French concessions. Pray tell, what did your parents teach?
My mother taught religious studies, and my father was a physics professor.
A professor of religious studies. How interesting. A man and woman of their time. Nothing like your parents, Bai Lian. Was your mother a particularly religious woman?
No. She always said that learning about religions made her realize their flawed nature. My father, on the other hand, followed the traditional practices.
And do you follow the traditional practices?
I must admit I have stopped over the years. Like my mother, I have taken an objective approach to traditional rituals. I partake in them if I must.
I see. A little re-education never hurt anybody, I suppose. The Hungry Ghost Festival is soon approaching, and what a better way to learn about your new family than by helping me prepare for the festivities. A daughter of two educated individuals must surely be educated herself.
Fei Chi is extremely educated. She studied in England, Lao Fu Ren.
Yes, of course, I know that. This one doesn't belong to this set. Don't know why I expected a girl of your background to distinguish between the two. Well, it seems like today is a day of settling. Where were we? Ah, England. What an experience that must have been.
It was different, I suppose.
How so? When you are of a certain stature, foreigners aren't so unfamiliar here.
Well, it's that the average person's life habits, clothing choices, speaking and behavior were visibly different. Where I studied, the professors earn hundreds of pounds a year, yet wear old tailored suits with modest fabrics as they go from tutorials to formals. You would never guess they were so wealthy. For them, it wasn't the money that drew them to their work, but the prospect of educating the future of the country.
Is Shanghai not the same? Madame Song teaches about the importance of educating the head, after all.
No. I don't think so. From what I have seen, the rich Shanghainese, with their chains of gold and layers of jade breathing out clouds of copper, are focused predominantly on flaunting their wealth. All said, though, I had already spent a lot of time throughout my life with foreigners and learnt about their ways of life, so it was not much of a shock, as it was an experience to actually live the way they live. New experiences are an effective path towards progress, as it happens.
Confucius taught us about new experiences, my dear. But then the spring and autumn period he lived in is long gone, and yet we still learn from him. Do you know what I mean?
I don't think that's...
Is this how educated people do light conversation in their homes? I'm not sure we ever managed more than a 2-sentence conversation about education without it turning into a heated argument.
I'm sure that you've noticed. This is your home now, Bai Lian. As surprising as that may be to all of us. So I would ask you not to lower the quality of conversation with your menial comments.
I have called many places home recently.
I'm sure, after that taxing journey back, my son's generosity and wealth must make you feel like you're living in luxury. Why, I'll admit, he may not have had the finest education. He truly has made a name for himself. Wouldn't you say?
I was always taught that education outpaced all forms of societal wealth and status.
I'm sure you'll change your mind about that. This is cold. Fei Chi, take it to the kitchen, then come read the newspaper to me while I rest my eyes. It's been a hot day.
Your hands, Lao Fu Ren. They're covered in calluses.
Thank you all so much for watching today. We would love to hear your feedback as we further develop the musical, and there will be a link to Google Form below this video on YouTube and also on our Facebook event page.
So we intend on developing the musical into a full 2-act show. So currently what you've seen has been an introduction to our characters and into an insight into sort of the ordinary scenes. But however, we aim to develop more characters and develop more themes and more scenes around the show so that hopefully it will be a cohesive piece of writing. We'd love to hear your feedback, and we'd love to hear if you have any further comments or suggestions or would like to interact with us. So we have linked our social handles in the description, and we have also linked the social handles for the actors below as well. So we'd love if you wanted to check out any of their other works.